All right. Cool. So, yeah, yesterday, if anybody tuned in for that, kind of had to run. Um, I had to go to Burnaby, which is about an hour away from my house in Vancouver right now, to drop off my girlfriend or my partner's car to get serviced, and yeah, it was just a big error on my behalf. I really was not mentally prepared for what was about to happen in terms of like, I mean, I I thought it was being a nice guy, just like, yeah, I'll drop it off for you. Didn't even think about it. And then it turned into like a 6-7 hour ordeal. I was so tired when I got home. I didn't eat anything before I left. I didn't bring a water bottle. And I basically just had to walk around this random neighborhood with nothing interesting. And I got to Metrotown, this big shopping center here. And I was just walking around the place, and I just kept having the thought of there's so many things here that I do not want. Except I do see a nice tent at Decathlon for a really good price. That was nice. And I got to catch up with my friend Shrey, who, shout out to Shrey, works at Chime. He was thinking about moving to New York. He's based in Toronto right now. I'm in Canada. He was thinking about moving to New York. That was kind of the plan. And yeah, I guess did some soul searching and decided he's gonna go to San Francisco. So shout out to you, Shrey, if you ever watch this. And I just realized we said we were gonna play some Valorant, and neither of us hit each other up. That's funny. Yeah, so that happened yesterday. That's why I didn't get back onto the stream, which is definitely disappointing because I really wanted to get more done, and I had a lot more juice left in me. So, you know, it is what it is. No big deal. So yeah, let's run through it. I do have some thoughts that I want to like talk about a bit with prompt engineering. I was just thinking about it last night. I was gonna start tweeting some stuff, but then I kind of had the thought that I don't know if that's my bag. We'll see. Maybe someday I'll start tweeting these things. But yeah, let's check out the markets. 83.95. Bitcoin's holding pretty steady. It's very interesting. Yeah, it's super interesting. Maybe something we should start tracking, and I've just decided we will start tracking, is a 10-year treasury yield. Is there a free place where I can watch stuff? Oh my gosh. I don't want to pretend like I know what I'm looking at here, but I was listening to the Money Matters podcast yesterday during my escapade, and before I go any further, I need to make sure that this audio is coming through, because that is happening way too much where I messed that up. Listening to the Money Matters podcast yesterday during my... Cool. So it is. That's perfect. All right, so I don't want to look at the yields. That's not what I'm in this for. Let's get to it. 8395. Pretty steady. I don't know. Does the market cap matter that much? 0.667. I don't know if it makes much sense to be doing this like this. We'll see how long it lasts. I'm not sure if this is like even... If I really enjoy this, I don't think anybody else is getting really anything from this either, so... I don't remember what they said. I want to say 3-3. Is that right? 3-1-3. 3-1-3. Maybe I need to start putting these in a proper chart, and that's where the value of this comes, so I can actually just see how this thing is moving. But at 8, 15 at the time of recording, obviously. 1, 5, 6, 9. 5, 6, 9. All right, this one is by far the most exciting, and I will admit I already did look at this, and I was like, wow, okay, we are on our way, bro. So let's go check it out here for you guys. Really important number that I want to highlight, and whoever this is, I'm stoked you're here. 7 subscribers, baby. This also a huge jump. 4, 9, or 4, 2, 7. Look at that, man. That feels so good. That feels so good, guys. Just to see the steady progression is just that's what daily vitamins really is to me. You know, it's just me doing this on a daily basis, and you know, just getting slightly better every day. Just, and not, you know, not even being too attached to the idea of getting better, you know, because I think I am perfectly competent as I am right now. and every day I just learn different things and I reinterpret. I guess I visit a lot of old questions and I try to, just build every day. But it's yeah, it feels good to. I mean, I've been going pretty consistent here for the last, when I really started doing it every day. 3 weeks ago, yeah. So I mean, today is the 19th day, and we didn't start on episode 1, so I don't know. Let's say this is 6, this is 7, or 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, so I think we've gone pretty close to like 22 days in a row. I don't know exactly when these ones were all put together, but either way, you can see the thumbnails. I'm stoked on these. I feel like, yeah, just the show is getting better and better and better. Trying new camera angles and stuff, so that's cool. Yeah, so that's that. We're gonna get into this pretty soon. First I want to download this code. So I'm gonna go up here just because this is like a useful open recent new window. Yeah, okay. I'm gonna go into control backtick, I guess. Print working directory, CD into desktop. Manual. Development. Cool. And we're gonna make dir. Or actually, I think we could just. Yeah, make dir. I'm gonna say timer. CD into timer. And then we're gonna run npx shad, add this. Yes. And we should have this clock application kind of running. So yeah. We'll come back to that, I guess. What is that? Okay, yeah, I did have a little, definitely wouldn't call it a rant, but I was thinking a lot last night, and as I mentioned, I was like, am I gonna tweet this right now? But let's dive into that. Okay, so yeah, I was just thinking, one thing I want to get to is reading through this Lee Boonstra's prompt engineering guide that Google helped produce, I guess. I don't really fully know what the relationship is there. I tried to find it on Google, but it's all hosted on Kaggle, so I don't know how Google is necessarily associated with this. Oh, you can just get it here. That's what I was looking for. Yeah, maybe we don't want to do it. I don't really want to just download it. That's gonna live here for now, I guess. Man, I really would love to just download this. Anyways, so So yeah, because of that, I was just thinking about prompt engineering, and I think I've talked about this on stream before, but I really am just trying to get through some of my thoughts on it, and that's what this little rant will be. But um, I've been thinking about it a lot because, again, as some of you know, if you've been watching the stream, which not many people have, so nobody really knows probably. But I had this opportunity with this company called the First Nations Technology Council. Great organization. They've helped me out a lot. Basically, they provide funding and resources to learning tech skills. I did a web development course with them before, and I was really fortunate. I was super motivated and had done some web development before, and so I did well in the course, and they actually helped put me through Brain Station's 3-month boot camp. I think it's 3 months, which was a good experience. Learned a lot, and they actually helped me find my internship with Microsoft. So they've been a huge platform for me, and yeah, basically they have an internship coming up, and one of the roles that they're thinking about posting for the internship is going to be curriculum developer. And that really strikes something for me because a few different things. When I went through the course, I definitely felt like, wow, I think this course can be much better. I think it can be ran better. I think the content was kind of reused stuff. I don't think it's very modern. A lot of this stuff, I don't even know how relevant it was then, but particularly in today's day and age, it's not relevant at all. And so I don't know how much FNTC is thinking about or experimenting with AI, but to me, as somebody that plays with these things like every day in my personal and professional life, I think that there's a ton of value here. And so that's kind of what I'm thinking I want to try to pitch them on, is this idea like, hey, I know you guys want to do a curriculum around web development, but I actually think, particularly for your audience and for every audience, over the next 20 years or 10 years or whatever, until you develop a new course, this is going to be way more relevant than learning, HTML tags and how to set up a style sheet. The tools that are available now will do all of this for you. And so really, I think prompt engineering is the skill to have, right? In this world that we're living in, I really do think it is like the key to I think being more productive and doing better work in shorter hours, just being more productive, being able to have access to these little geniuses, super valuable, right? And so what I think about a lot, and what I want to develop a course around for my Indigenous community through the platform that is FNTC, is building like a prompt engineering course, right? And like really thinking about, how do you get better at prompt engineering? I think you can kind of break that down into subtasks, or maybe like different, not even subtasks, but like there's different dimensions to that. And this isn't fully fleshed out, but I think that there is like reading and writing. And the beautiful thing, I think it's always kind of been that with computers, it's like input, output, reading, writing. The beautiful thing now is that we have kind of taught these computers to speak English. But English is the most difficult language to learn, as far as I know. Obviously, I don't know, maybe not obviously, but I don't know any other languages. So it's kind of tough for me to say that, but my understanding is that it's the toughest language to work, because we just have so many memes and so many different words to say kind of the same thing. I'm sure all cultures have this on some level, but English being just so dominant in the business world, probably because of the petrodollar system, and every country essentially needing to hold, US dollars to be able to pay for their oil from Saudi Arabia, that might contribute to it. But either way, they speak English pretty well, but they're very literal machines. And so I'm thinking a lot about, how do you read well? Because reading is thinking, as we've talked about on stream, right? And I think reading, being thinking. I think thinking requires like a development in refining your tastes and your senses of memetics, of memes. I don't mean like memes like, oh, funny meme, but I mean like the true definition that Richard Dawkins proposed in The Selfish Gene of like, these are ideas that you can kind of think as like they're densely packed, that contain a lot of information in them, but in like the fewest possible, as the LLMs would think about it, tokens. And so these tools, you essentially are able to implant, this little seed that's small for now, and ideally very discreet. And then you put it into these tools, and then you watch the magic kind of unfold and see the seeds that you've sowed. And so, yeah, I think prompt engineering, as a statement, prompt engineering is the more valuable skill, probably than many others right now. To the point where it might even be like a fundamental tenet, just like it's like, oh yeah, you should know use the internet, know to Google things. I think prompt engineering will get to that place. I think that these tools will continue to spread, and I have a few reasons to believe that. Me obviously being really close to the fire, I personally, have felt that way for years now, but I think it's just becoming more and more clear. And I mean, you even have, I guess, two examples. The CEO of Replit is like, I don't even know if I recommend, I think before his thing was everyone should learn how to code. He doesn't even feel that way anymore. He's like, these tools are good enough as is, that they can kind of do it. So, I don't know if you need to learn how to code because the tools can do it. Tobias Toby Lutke, Canadian CEO, Shopify, biggest Canadian tech company. He had an internal memo that was leaked, and then I think he shared it on Twitter or something of that sort. But basically, he put it out, and his thing was, it is assumed that you are so AI reliant. And if you aren't, you need to get AI reliant. You have access to geniuses in your pocket. You should be AI native. Use this for everything. That should be your default way of doing things, is like use the AI. I think another example is Tyler Cowen, very famous economist, probably has more written text on the internet than, I don't know, anybody maybe. Has a daily blog. I think it's The Marginal Revolution where you can find it. Has a podcast that I think is great, and he has really awesome questions, which is super fun. And I listened to one of his podcasts, or a podcast he was featured on, and one of the things that he said is he's like, most of my writing now is for the AIs. And I think he did kind of acknowledge the sort of vanity in it, that he's saying, look, I think how I will be remembered is through the AIs, and so most of my writing is for the AIs at this point. And I've talked about this on the stream as well, where I feel similarly with the streams, where my thinking is, I'm not Tyler Cowen, I'm not polished, I'm not some genius. I'm kind of just a guy that likes to try these things out, and was at the right place, right time, the right, I just got lucky in terms of when I was born and the things I was born around and my curiosities. And I think, yeah, it's just a super exciting time to be alive. But I feel similar, where it's kind of like, I want to try to be remembered through the AI, through these videos, and maybe a different side of humanity, like the imperfection, not so polished. But I do think that Tyler Cowen, very similar to platforms being these fundamental things that shift forward. I think Tyler Cowen saying all of his writing is no longer for humans, but rather AIs. Not that humans can't consume it, but like the audience that he's thinking about in mind is the AIs. It feels like El Salvador buying Bitcoin before any other country. This like early bird gets the worm. You're taking up this space that is heavily discounted, but the future value is clearly there. And so when it's all said and done, he might be the most well-known economist, Tyler Cowen, that is. I.e., like, he's just got a big meme energy to words will be repeated forever, because he's going into what's actually training these models right now. And eventually they'll be training themselves. So if he's on what trained it, and they start training themselves, they're going to be trained on him. That's the root of it. So that's cool. Got a few other things here. I'll just read them off. This kind of goes with how to read, right? It's like, what is prompt engineering? Prompt engineering is the art and science of designing and optimizing prompts to guide these AI models towards generating some, like, desired outcome or response. And by carefully crafting these prompts, you provide the model with context, instruction, and examples that really try to get a rich understanding of your intent and respond in what it thinks is the most appropriate way, because these are prediction machines, so it's responding in what it thinks you're looking for. And so because there's many different things you can look for, it has to be incredibly pedantic. And so you're kind of providing this roadmap for this AI, steering it towards specific outputs, kind of saying like, hey, that's not what I'm looking for. Here's how you know that you're on the right track for what I'm looking for. So you're giving it the context, but you're also giving it instructions, and you're giving it examples. And yeah, try to get it to really zero in what you do, but also try to play with it and have fun and let you show its mind in the process, because that's how you're going to learn how to communicate with them better, right? I do believe this, actually. I think I kind of believe that the quality of your LLM responses, right now at least, is directly correlated with your clarity of thought. How well do you understand the senses that you're feeling or the ideas that you're seeing, and how well can you convey that into English? Now, that's not to say there can't be other clarities of thoughts, other mediums for that, right? Like, there's obviously artists that do beautiful things. But yes, I do think that the quality of your AI responses is actually more of a reflection of you than the AI. And so if you have lazy prompts, you're probably going to get not very specific, kind of general, vague answers that may or may not work. But the better you can describe the issue, the better this thing will be able to solve it, because it knows how to solve it. It knows how to solve it. That most things that you're trying to solve, particularly with programming, but yeah, most things have been solved before. And it's really just like a information asymmetry. So yeah, I think your AI responses are really like correlated to your clarity of thought and your ability to express through reading and writing. It feels almost like chess. It's much more open-ended, obviously, but it's not a finite game. But you and this LLM are sort of taking turns clarifying, refining, and specifying some thought. You can think of like you and this AI are this circle orbiting this thought that neither of you really knows a path how to get there, and you're both just taking estimations, and you chart one path and it responds and tries to chart another path, and your job is to be like, yes, 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 or no, 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 let's go this way. It's almost curling, maybe. I'm not sure, but it's not as you against me, so maybe chess isn't a great example, but the reason I was thinking that is because like chess is like a really viral game, and it's like super simple, super elegant, but it's as complex as you want it to be. The way Magnus Carlsen plays chess is going to be much different than a 3-year-old that just picked it up, but a 3-year-old can do it, or a 5-year-old or whatever. And so yeah, playing with these AIs, doing this daily vitamins thing is awesome for me, because it feels very similar to myself when I was forcing myself to do all these math courses in university, where I was so bad at them, and none of the stuff ever felt clear to me. But the more practice questions I did, the more reps, I just felt myself getting sharper. And I really grinded through a lot of these courses, not being super successful in them, but just, learning step by step and kind of being the best version of myself that I could be. Which was not a mathematician, but that's fine. I think chess is very similar. You have the rating scores. And now, yeah, I think LLMs are doing a similar thing. I feel myself becoming sharper, being able to expand my vocabulary and my understanding of feelings to express them. So yeah. Also, one thought I was thinking about is, should my name of the show be Everyday Vitamins or Daily Vitamins? I'm not really sure. I'm thinking about it. But there's my rant. There's my rant. There is the rant. Now, what are we doing? Getting rid of that. All right, so I've cleaned up a few different things. I guess I'll show you. So I was getting some issues around window and the browser port not being expected, I guess, outcomes according to my linter within TS config. So basically what I did is I just added DOM, because the DOM is the document object model, and basically it looks at a JavaScript web page and or an HTML web page and allows you to plug JavaScript into it. So there's like some fundamental objects with a bunch of methods attached to them, such as the window or the browser, that you can kind of think as like a pegboard where it sits there, it's existing, but you need to actually configure the peg onto the board and link the JavaScript to the HTML to the web page. Is how I kind of think about it. So yeah, let's go switch this view so you guys can kind of see more clearly what we're doing here. I guess I didn't really show that, but yeah, as I mentioned, I kind of just added the DOM to our compiler options so that when it lints it, it knows, hey, this is a thing. You don't have to throw an error and warn me that it might not work. If I look at this, I'm pretty sure I don't see any errors in here. If I go to my window with the server, yeah, okay. So server's listening on 300. Doesn't see any errors. That's great. We're gonna do this. I think I've already copied. Yeah, I've already copied the new ngrok endpoint that we're gonna have to point our API to, or the HTTP API from Clay. But I haven't really edited any other code from here. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a look at this a little bit and see if I can actually just do this myself to figure out, like, hey, where is this issue coming up? Because it is about where the I wonder if how could I clean this page up? I feel like there's a lot going on in this server that I want to try to just compartmentalize a little bit better, make it a little bit more modular. This would definitely need to stay. And background test. Okay, so I want to make this code more modular. Let's ask. Let's create a new chat here. Toggle AI panel. Yeah. So, what models are available? Cloud 3.7. I'd like to make this index.ts. I'd like to make my server index.ts file more modular. What's the term for this? What's the term for that? Like establish. Let's make this real big on here. I'm trying to find yeah, it does look like I have these in here. I think I have a bunch of that stuff on my hard drive. Man, I haven't been making much music lately. It's kind of a bummer. But I just haven't really been that inspired. Kind of been pretty inspired by this, so. Shout out to you guys. Okay, Lacey. So I see some stuff around beats, live Texas music, reading, vids. Sales marketing. There's no way I don't have it in here, right? GitHub server project. That's high key, pretty surprising. High key. Yeah, she said cringe stuff. It's really disappointing that I don't have that thing. I'm really surprised I don't have that. Controllers, routes. Yeah, that's what it is. Want some controllers, routes. Yeah. I'd like to make the server index CS more modular, i.e. I want controllers and routes just so the something like controllers and routes, etc. Let's see what this comes up with. Yeah, because anyways, the reason I want to do that is like there's just a lot here that I want to actually try to break this up a little bit. So we have this, obviously, this async generate the v0 design. But there's an issue with it, and I just have so many comments and stuff that it's a lot of text to look at here. What does it say? I'll refactor this code to make it more modular. Let's create a proper structure with controllers, routes, and services. List 1399 correctly. Now create a modular structure for the application. There's an index. And then the puppeteer service. Okay, let's let this work for a bit. Sweater, kind of cold. All right, while this does this, I'm gonna fill up my tea. T should be done. BRB. All right, let's try this out. Let's see. I don't think any code has actually changed here, so I don't imagine this will work. But let's edit this column. When somebody posts this, they will run generate design, which we go into here, generate. It's gonna run this. Request is a request, response is a response. So const website URL is gonna come from the body. Const clay webhook URL, you get that from the envelope. If there's no website URL, also warn API received request without a website URL. This is called website URL and everything, right? Website URL, yeah. Cool. If there's no webhook URL, it's not configured on the server. Console or const job ID is going to be UUIDV version 4 console log. Job ID is this. Construct a dynamic prompt for the redesign. So we're going to explore this later. But their background test asynchronously. So process the Puppeteer job in the background. So console log. Job ID API handoff. So it immediately responds with a 202 and the job ID. Then it's going to process this. Console log job ID, starting the Puppeteer job for the prompt. Does this process Puppeteer job in the background? Prompt job ID, console log job ID, const clay webhook is the config this thing. There's no webhook. Fatal clay webhook is not defined, cannot notify clay. Try const generated URL equals to await generate v0 design. Just generate design. What's the difference between generate design and generate v0 design? Explain. Okay. So Puppeteer browser page. Okay, perfect. So it works. That's fucking awesome. That is great. So now what we're going to try to do is a few different experiments. Let's write this down here. Okay, so plan, fix timeout issue, fix webhook working as expected. Okay, so these are both done. Yeah. Now, how does B0 behave with bulk orders? We're gonna try running 10 rows at a time. Can we get better images? What can we do for the prompts? Okay, so hey. Unfortunately, these don't actually look better, but the proof of concept is there, guys. That's the important thing. The proof of concept is there. We've configured an API. It's done. Okay, so I think we have messed up the completed row. Yeah, all of these have error. Okay. So what do we just see happen? Basically, Clay is like, yo, bro, we just did what you asked us to do. And V0 was like, nah, bro. You can't do that. But we also see that our lookup is actually, so Okay. Can't do this. Do this for sale is like, what the fuck? Unusual amount of requests from you. Lookup table formula seems to be wrong. The logic should be check the job ID from this table. Look for the same job ID in the webhook table. If return the generated URL from the table we are looking up. Right now, we are looking up the row that has completed as the status. I might have to authenticate because they're like, hey, bro. All right, this seems like a Gemini number. Let's turn off the music here real quick. Hey, I need some help working with clay. So basically the issue I have is I have one table where I'm running some information. No. Let's see this. Hey, I need help getting a lookup working in clay. Without getting into too much details, basically I have an HTTP API integration for my original clay table where I do some things. I ultimately am looking for this API of mine will create a job ID amongst other things. I then have a webhook set up with another V0 table that is the V0 webhook table. In there, I have 4 columns. There's the generated URL, there's the status, there's the job ID, and then there's the error message. Basically, in my original, I'm calling it V0 workbook versus the V0 webhook. In my original workbook, I am using the clay enrichment of looking up single row in other table. Maybe that's the issue, is that I'm looking up a single row Interesting. Okay. Maybe if we edit this to be a different, um, let's, let's actually try this. But anyways, basically the issue that I'm finding with this one, and I'm gonna test it on myself and see if that's the issue. But basically, I set the inputs. It says pull in data from the webhook table, status, the target column. I'm just putting a status, and the filter operator equals to row value completed. And so this each row of this V0 workbook returns a generated URL from the webhook lookup. But it's all the same URL. So I think maybe the issue is that the integration or enrichment I'm using is looking up a single row versus looking up um, looking at multiple rows. I think that might be the issue. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll stop it there. What are your thoughts? I'm just gonna test it on my own though. I think you clear to find the V0 webhook table that corresponds specifically to the row it's currently processing. You say you should configure the enrichment. You may use find rows in table or similar enrichment that allows dynamic filtering based on the current row's data rather than look up single row. Find rows in table or similar. The exact name might vary slightly. The enrichment. Um. hmm. Yo, chat. I am going to the washroom. All right. Close that. So, where were we? We're looking into Clay University product roundup, Webflow, Reddit, Oki, waterfall templates, support QA using AI to maintain quality at scale, tools to book more meetings, Claygent Neon deep dive, Clay with head of education, 10x LinkedIn outreach, Clay experts webinar. Thanks. Clay, Clay, multiple row. How to auto match most placeable candidates in job posts? Look up, add, and update Google Sheets rows. I'm ranking in this? Look at that. Or explore more. I guess it's probably based on my stuff. How to auto match most placeable candidates. How to write to table.
All right, so today I'm going to show you how you can use write to table, and specifically within write to table, we are going to be going over how to write a list of objects to another table, right? And so in this example, this may happen with you pretty often. I had a large list of companies. I enriched the companies, scored them. I found the top 17 that I want to contact. And now what I want to do is create another table for prospects. And so what I've done is first, I ran this find people integration on the same table. So basically on here, right, I'm just looking for the CEO, founder, or co-founder. Now what I want to do is create a new table that has rows for all of the people and the contact information for all of the people, but I also want to retain all of this company information so that I'm able to see the contact information and their company's information side by side. And so the first thing that you need to do when you're writing to table is figure out what are you writing. And in this case,
Is that what I need to do? Write to table? Add up enrichments, I guess. Right. Right to other table. Okay. Is that what I wanted? So, but I only want to do it if it's dynamic, right? Like, right. Select a table to write to. Back out of this, we want the 0 workbook. Select a list from a column. Enter the value. What is this? Select a table to write to. Select a list from select a list from a column. Oh, yeah, I want the generated URL. Select a column in column to write this to. I don't feel like that did what I wanted it to do, to be honest with you. What about read from other table? Look up, remove, create and update, get data. So what the... Record was found. VSFX. Yeah. Actions. Add a row. Right table. Monitor new hires. Monitor for job changes. Import. I want to add. Find in local businesses. Save.
You got some broccoli? Oh, yes. What? Very good outside. Oh my god, I thought you were the real deal.
I'm streaming, bro.
Whoa! Got you something, brother.
Cheers, man. Appreciate that. You're cooked, bro. That's sick for a Paralino. His social insurance number is... You gotta audition. What are you doing, Sig? Caramel big cup. I'm about to spaz.
Oh.
I don't... I need your help here, ChatGPT. So the issue that I have right now is that when I'm on Clay, I'm trying to do a lookup single or multiple row from another table. And what I want to look up by is that I have a job ID. This job ID corresponds to a webhook job ID, this webhook table. in the webhook, what I'm actually waiting for is this generated URL. And I want to return that generated URL in a new column here in this initial workbook. But when I look at the inputs for look up multiple rows, what I see is basically pull in data from webhook table. Then when I go target columns, select an item from the dropdown. So if I target job ID, filter equals the row value. I can't seem to like dynamically put in does this I can't seem to dynamically put in the job ID for this specific row that determines what row to return or to look up in the other table and return the corresponding generated URL there. I'm sharing you a screenshot here. All right, here's the issue. I'm sharing this screenshot. Basically what I'm trying to do is I have the V0 workbook and I have the V0 webhook book. Basically in the V0 workbook, I use the HTTP API enrichment to call on my API that I've built. That API does a few different things, but largely it logs into a website, authenticates for me, puts in a prompt, and waits for this. It does some polling and waits for this generated URL. And so I've had to set up a webhook within Clay. That all seems to be working. The issue is that when I go to look up the generated URL from the webhook page, I can't seem to dynamically look up the job ID, match that with the corresponding job ID in the webhook table, and then based on the job IDs matching, get the generated URL from each of the corresponding job IDs. It seems like if you look at this photo here, I can only give it a static job ID to look up to, or a status. But when I do the status, it only looks up one thing. So yeah, curious how I can go about this. Let's see. Like I said to you guys earlier, prompt engineering, really difficult. Or maybe not even difficult, but a good skill. I really like just talking into it. I feel like I can express myself more, and I don't think about how I'm not doing it the right way when I'm listening or speaking. Wow, this smells like it's not good for you. I think I might come up. Did I miss that? Bro's low key sliding. Mm, 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 mm. Hey, yeah. In your row value, if you click the dynamic content button, it's like job ID column from your current workbook. It should look something like this, job ID. Row value. Correct the target column. Make sure the target column is job ID in your webhook table, not status. Pull to generate out column, look up single row, another two. So
What can you want to say? Negative criminals. The fatal جلسة شيقة مش قدامي. يعني أنا قلت أنا لما شفتها قلت واو يعني شريك سكوت وبتاع. يعني أستنى هيك. بيلعب بيلعب أنا أختار إيه شوية راح.
Hmm.
Case we're writing a list of objects, which is these LinkedIn matches. The next thing to do before you even really get started on this is you have to think of what the table should look like that you're looking to write to. So my ideal table, right, has all of the same columns about the company, as well as the person's name, title, and LinkedIn profile that the LinkedIn Find People integration was able to find. And so to make this really easy, all I did, instead of creating all of these columns to match my last table, all I did was I exported this as a CSV and then uploaded that table into here and deleted all the information. And what I was left with was essentially a carbon copy when it comes to the columns. And I just added on top of those columns the contact name, contact title, and contact LinkedIn profile. And the reason this is so important is because when you are writing to table, you'll be mapping based off of the columns in that new table. And to show you what that means, write to table, I've selected this table called write to table demo, and all of these fields that pop up right here are the fields that I've already created right here. Now, in the case that I want to add another column, it's not a problem. I can add a column on this table and up here go to refresh fields, which will repull. But in this case, I've refreshed column. Write to table means you'll be mapping based off of the columns in that new table. And to show you what that means, write to table, I've selected this table called write to table demo, and all of these fields that pop up right here are the fields that I've already created right here. Now, in the case that I want to add another column, it's not a problem. I can add a column on this table and up here go to refresh fields, which will repull. But in this case, I've created the perfect table for my use case. And now what I need to start doing is filling in the information. So the first things first, I have chosen to write a list of objects. And so what I'm going to do is put in, if you go to find people, this list of objects, these are the matches. This is kind of the core piece that I'm looking to push over to the other table, right? So now I've identified that this is going to be the list of objects, and the list of objects is this list of people. The next thing to do is to begin mapping the different columns. And the most important thing to keep in mind with this, and you'll have to get a little bit used to it, is that you'll constantly be asked for every field, is this value a constant? And what that means is, if we're looking at our table right now, we've got all of these different rows, and currently these rows have different information about the companies. And in this one column, we've got multiple different options, right? And so if we're looking at this table, the total funding amount is going to be a constant for all of these people in this list right here, right? Right here, we've got 3 people in this one cell. This total funding amount is going to be a constant for all of those people. And so when this asks, is this a constant? If it is going to be the same for all of the people in your list, then yes, it is a constant. Check the box, and what you can do is map it really easily.
Mm.
Professionally and personally, we are thrilled you're here.
Thank you.
After all this time.
I am
And-
too.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Thanks for being.
So we're going to start off with kind of an easy one. Just this week, you surpassed Microsoft in market valuation, and we thought you might have a thought or two about that.
For those of us that have been in the industry a long time, it's surreal. But it doesn't matter very much. It's not what's important. It's not, what makes you come to work in the morning. It's not why any of our customers buy our products. So I think it's good for us to keep that in mind and just remember what we're doing and why we're doing it.
But I just have to
But
ask
it is a
you
little
something.
surreal.
It is a little surreal, and I remember talking to you right when you were coming back to Apple. We talked a number of times, and if I remember correctly, the company was sort of on its way to oblivion.
Oh, it was on the rocks, yeah.
So, could you ever have imagined something like this? Even though I know market cap isn't why people buy our products or anything, it's just like, what did it feel like when it happened?
Well, Apple was about 90 days away from going bankrupt back then, in the early days, and it was much worse than I thought when I went back initially. But there were people there who I'd expected all the good people would have left. And I found these miraculous people, these great people, and I said, why? I tried to ask this as tactfully as I could, but why are you still here? and a lot of them had this little phrase. They said, because I bleed in 6 colors.
Yeah.
Which was the old 6-color Apple logo. And that was code for, because I love what this place stands for, or at least stood for. And that just made all of us want to work that much harder to have it survive and have those values survive and bring it back, you know?
So we want to spend most of this session talking about your thoughts from your really interesting position, because, you know, the conference is sort of about the juncture of technology and media, and you're sitting there right at that juncture in a lot of ways. I want to spend most of the session talking about where you think things are going in the future. But there have been some controversies lately that we want to ask you about. And I guess I'd start with Flash and your sort of war with Adobe. So you published a long, open letter, something like, what did you call it, Thoughts on Flash or something like that? So you've clearly stated your case there. But even if, here's my question, even if everything you say in there is true about its inferiority as a technology and other things being available to replace it and already replacing it, is it really fair or the best thing for consumers who buy, say, an iPad or an iPhone to just be abrupt? In other words, if we're in a transition where there are better things in Flash, why be abrupt and cut off consumers?
Sure. Well, two things. Number one, I'll come back in a minute to what really happened there, because what you said isn't exactly chronologically correct. But Apple is a company that doesn't have the most resources of everybody in the world. And the way we've succeeded is by choosing what horses to ride really carefully, technically. We try to look for these technical vectors that have a future and that are headed up. And, you know, technology, different pieces of technology kind of go in cycles. They have their springs and summers and autumns, and then they, you know, go to the graveyard of technology. And so we try to pick things that are in their springs. And if you choose wisely, you can save yourself an enormous amount of work versus trying to do everything. And you can really put energy into making those new emerging technologies be great on your platform, rather than just okay because you're spreading yourself too thin. So we have a history of doing that. As an example, we went from the 5-inch floppy disk to the 3.5-inch floppy disk with the Mac.
Before other people, right?
We were the first to do that. We made the 3.5-inch floppy disk popular. Sony invented it, and we put it in the first products. And there were some good reasons we did that. We got rid of the floppy disk altogether in 1998 with the first iMac. We also got rid of these things called serial and parallel ports, and we were the first to adopt USB, even though Intel had invented it. You first saw it in mass on iMacs. And so we have gotten rid of things. We were one of the first to get rid of optical drives with the MacBook Air. And I think things are moving in that direction as well. And sometimes when we get rid of things like the floppy disk drive on the original iMac, people call us crazy.
Or at least premature, maybe.
No, they call us crazy.
Oh, okay.
But sometimes you just have to pick the things that look like they're going to be the right horses to ride going forward. And Flash looks like a technology that had its day, but is waning. And HTML5 looks like the technology that's really on the ascendancy right now. And to incorporate Flash into systems is a lot of work. There's no smartphone shipping with Flash on it now, as you know.
But you know that there will be, right?
Well, you know, there's going to have been for the last 2 or 3 years, and every 6 months it gets updated. So I'm sure that eventually they will. And there's a lot of issues with that in terms of battery life and, you know, security and other things. But more importantly, HTML5 is starting to emerge. You know, there's been an avalanche of people that have said, we're doing HTML5 video. And the video looks better, and it works better, and you don't need a plug-in to run it. And so while 75% of the video in the web may be in Flash, you know, 25% going to 50% very shortly is also available in HTML.
So do you say that to consumers? I mean,
Yeah, but it's
talking,
the-
besides technology, it's
No,
consumers.
I think consumers outside of the Valley and our industry aren't having this issue.
Except when they hold up their iPad and they go to a web page and there's like a hole there where a video
Well,
would be.
you know, there are
They don't know. They may not know what Flash
there are
is.
holes in some websites, but those holes are getting plugged real fast. You know, the holes that exist now are ads. So I understand that's a
entirely.
problem
They're-
for some people.
Not entirely.
Not entirely, but that's the number one holes that are there.
And what
are
about
ads.
the other community that I think is impacted by this, and that's developers? Because what I think a lot of the coverage of this Flash issue has overlooked is that, yes, Flash is a video container, and there are other video containers
Sure.
that actually have a very rising share, H.264 and native HTML5, but it's also a development environment, and there are entire websites, some of them quite beautiful, written on a Flash platform.
An even more popular development environment was HyperCard, and we were okay to axe that.
It wasn't more
Well-
popular than Flash, was it?
Oh, in its day, sure it was.
On your platform, right?
No. HyperCard was huge in its day because it was accessible to anybody. So I mean, you could be a HyperCard developer.
Yeah, I don't know.
So,
I don't know about
but you know, we have over 200,000 apps on the App Store. So something must be going right in terms of attracting developers to our platform.
So your goal, just to finish this up, your ultimate goal is to get rid of Flash or just to move? How
No,
would you
see,
look at
our goal is really easy. We didn't start off to have a war with Flash or anything else. We just made a technical decision that we weren't going to put the energy into getting Flash on our platform. We told Adobe, if you ever have this thing running fast, come back and show us, which they never did. And but we think we're not going to use it, and that was it. And we shipped the iPhone, and it doesn't use Flash. And it wasn't until we shipped the iPad and it didn't use Flash that Adobe started to raise a stink about it. We didn't raise a stink about it. We never mentioned the word Adobe or Flash or anything else. We like Adobe. We have a lot of common customers with CS, you know, their Creative Suite software and things like that. So we weren't trying to have a fight. We just decided not to use one of their products in our platform. And so, you know, they started to say a lot of bad things about us in the press and this and that, and it went on for months. And that's why I wrote Thoughts on Flash, was because we were trying to be real professional about this and weren't talking to the press about it. We didn't think it was a matter for the press. And we finally just said, enough is enough. We're tired of these guys trashing us in the press over this. And so we wrote down the reasons why, technically, we didn't choose Flash. And they are just as true today as they were when we wrote it, as they were 6 months or a year before that.
And what would happen, just so this, I promise, we're going to move on to the next thing you don't want to talk about, but on this Flash thing, what would happen, I mean, you know, it's an open market. You do have competitors, particularly in the smartphone side, and you may have significant competitors in the tablet side. We have a couple of companies showing non-iPad tablets here this week.
This is America.
This is America, that's right. Well, it's LA, but it's part of America, yeah. What if the market says, hey, you know, it's important enough to us to be able to run not just these videos, but whole websites. You know, there's a great photo editing site, I don't know if you've ever used it, called Picnic. It's a lovely site. It really works like a smooth, slick, native client on your computer. But it's written in, it's a Flash site on the web. I mean, it probably uses other technologies too, but it doesn't work on the iPad. What if people say, you know, the iPad is crippled in this respect?
Well, you know, well, I'd say two things. Number one, things are packages of emphasis. Some things are emphasized in a product, some things are not done as well in a product, some things are chosen not to be done at all in a product. And so different people make different choices. And if the market tells us we're making the wrong choices, we listen to the market. We're just people running this company. We're trying to make great products for people. And so we have at least the courage of our convictions to say, we don't think this is part of what makes a great product. We're going to leave it out. Some people are going to not like that. They're going to call us names. It's not going to be in certain companies' vested interests that we do that, but we're going to take the heat because we want to make the best product in the world for customers. And we're going to instead focus our energy on these technologies, which we think are in their ascendancy and we think are going to be the right technologies for customers. And you know what? They're paying us to make those choices. That's what a lot of customers pay us to do, is to try to make the best products we can. And if we succeed, they'll buy them. And if we don't, they won't. And it'll all work itself out.
So,
So far, I'd have to say that people seem to be liking iPads, you know? I mean, we've sold one every 3 seconds since we launched it. So I don't know how it's going to turn out.
Takes you 3 whole seconds to sell one? Can't you do better?
Right now, I'm just worried that it's taken us 3 whole seconds to make one.
So,
because we could be selling them faster, it seems like.
obviously you have
I'm
shiny
enjoying the sun right now,
opinions
guys.
opinions about this.
Taking my
You've
lunch
been
break,
emailing
maybe.
a lot lately.
We'll see how long this goes
This is
for.
riveting to a lot of people. I know it sounds silly outside of Silicon Valley, but a lot of people are riveted to what's happened in your communication style, because you've been emailing people, you've been emailing people at Valleywag and stuff like that.
Well, he never identified himself as a journalist, but I was working late one night. It actually was like 2 in the morning, I think.
Yeah.
And I was I'm making a presentation next Monday, and I was working on that presentation, and this guy starts emailing me these obnoxious emails, and I'm just enough of a sucker that I want to like straighten this guy's thinking out. So I start to respond to him, and he responds back. He's not, he's no dummy, and he's responding back, and we got into this conversation. It was kind of entertaining.
Yeah, it was.
And then he publishes it. So,
well, a lot of your
that's
emails
okay.
are getting published.
Yeah, I know.
You just like to email now? What's happened?
But you are like even just customers, not just
Yeah,
that
customers.
exchange. So they're very short a lot of times.
I've actually always done a bit of that.
Okay, all right. So you had a prototype of one of your products that was wound up in a bar, and have you heard of? Has this come to your attention? I don't know, because you're the CEO, and I don't know whether lower levels are handling it, but and then there was a blog that paid somebody some money. We don't really know the whole story because the investigation, I guess, is underway with the police. But I wanted to ask you your reaction to some sort of a duality about this, because I think there are people in the public and in journalism who don't approve of somebody, of sort of checkbook journalism, if you want to call it that, the way that was done, if what we know is true. And I want to keep stressing that because I don't know that we know the whole thing yet. But on the other hand, then the police go and they don't issue a subpoena, which somebody's lawyers could fight in court about taking this guy's computers, but they go and get a search warrant and they grab them. And one presumes, and again, I don't know, but I know if they took my computer, there's notes and things for many companies and many sources and stories and things that wouldn't necessarily be relevant to whatever the police are looking at. It was just like a giant grab of a journalist's sort of assets of all the background of what that guy was doing.
Or a guy's assets, at least.
Well,
you could debate what a journalist is, but yeah.
We could debate it, but I mean, we think bloggers are journalists, We run a blog, so we think bloggers are journalists. And the New York Times runs blogs, the Wall Street Journal runs blogs. I don't think that's much of a debate anymore. But anyway, the point is, so where do people come down on this? I mean, what do you think? What do you come
Well,
down?
I can just tell you what, there is an ongoing investigation by the DA, and I'm not current on it, but I can tell you what I do know.
Okay.
One of our employees, to make a wireless product work well, you have to test it. And there's no way to test it in a lab completely, so you actually have to carry them and test them out. And one of our employees was carrying one, and there is a debate as to whether it was left in a bar or stolen out of his bag, but I don't know the answer to that. And the person that ended up with the phone decided they would try to sell it to somebody, so they called Engadget and they called Gizmodo. It turned out that the person that got the phone tried to activate it by plugging it into his roommate's computer, a woman. And she saw him evidently destroying some evidence, and she's the one that called the police. And that's why they got the search warrant.
Did you call the police or did you call Apple?
She called the police, and because she didn't want to get implicated, supposedly. I'm just telling you what I've been told. And so the police came and felt that they needed to grab some stuff before it all disappeared. And so this is a story that's amazing. It's got theft. It's got buying stolen property. It's got extortion. I'm sure there's sex in there somewhere, you know.
Really?
And so somebody should make a movie out of this.
Well, we've got some movie producers.
But and you know, and it was reported that the police broke down somebody's door, which they, to my best of my knowledge, never did. And so it's just, this whole thing is very colorful, and the DA's investigating it. And to my knowledge, they have somebody from the courts that is making sure that they only see stuff that relates to this case and no other cases. I believe they're taking great pains to do that. And so I don't know where it will end up. It's really up to the DA.
So the last question before we get to really easy stuff like Google, and about platforms and bigger where things are going. Do you have any comments on what's going on at Foxconn because of all the press around?
Oh, sure, yeah. We're pretty on top of that. I actually think Apple does one of the best jobs of any companies in our industry, and maybe in any industry, of understanding the working conditions in our supply chain. And we're extraordinarily diligent and extraordinarily transparent about it. You can go on our website and read, you know, our report that we publish once a year. And we go into these suppliers, and we go into their secondary and tertiary suppliers, places where nobody's ever gone before and audited them before, and we're pretty rigorous about it. So I can tell you a few things that we know, and we're all over this. Foxconn is not a sweatshop. I mean, you go to this place, and it's a factory, but my gosh, I mean, they've got restaurants and movie theaters and hospitals and swimming pools, and I mean, for a factory, it's a pretty nice factory. But they've had, if you count the attempted suicides, 13 so far this year. And while that is still, they have 400,000 people at this place, so 13 out of 400,000 is 26 per year so far for 400,000 people, or let's say 7 per 100,000 people. That's still under the U.S. suicide rate of 11 per 100,000 people, but it's really troubling.
Right, it's in one place too. It's in one.
Well, you
Not like
measure
a
by
whole
number of
country.
people.
Not a whole
Yeah.
country,
You measure it by numbers
Right.
of people.
Yeah.
So we had this in my hometown of Palo Alto. We've had some copycat suicides where high school kids have committed suicide by throwing themselves in front of Amtrak, and it's very troubling. So we're over there trying to understand what's happening, and more importantly, trying to understand how we can help, because it's a difficult situation. They've got a lot of workers who are leaving very poor rural areas, coming to these factories, away from home for the first time, 19 years old. They're probably less prepared to leave home than your typical high school student going to college in this country. And so I think there's some real issues there.
And you all are bringing in psychiatrists or any? Or is
We're
that-
trying to understand right now.
Okay.
Before we go in and say we know the solution, we need to understand what the problem is. And
So you have teams, but what kind of
Yeah.
folks do you send over there? I mean, they have to be some kind of social workers, or what do you send over there to find out, or just lawyers, or what?
No, not lawyers.
Not lawyers? No? Okay.
We send over, first of all, our own people that have been going over there for a long time and are very familiar with them. And second, we've hired some outside folks as well.
Okay.
Okay.
So let's talk about where things are heading. You spent a good chunk of your career fighting a platform war with Microsoft in the early, in the PC, the heyday of the PC era. They won that platform war pretty decisively in terms of operating systems. The Mac is, making a nice comeback, but I mean, basically they got a much huger share, and they do dominate that platform. But now there are new platforms out there. You've done really well on some of them. The the really advanced smartphones, and now the beginnings of this tablet thing using the same OS. You have other platforms. You have Google. It's a lot of people consider to be building multiple platforms. You know, Android, this forthcoming Chrome OS, and of course their whole search ecosystem that they have, and their app ecosystem around it through the browser. Everything through the browser and through search. And then the social graph, the social networks. Facebook is a platform, and it's very big, and it's very popular, and it runs into controversy, and we have Mark coming, and we're going to talk to him about it. So to Karen and I, there's a platform war going on that you're a big player in it, Google's a player in it, Facebook's a player in it. Do you see it like that?
No.
Okay.
And I never have. I mean, we never saw ourselves in a platform war with Microsoft. I mean, maybe that's why we lost. But we always saw ourselves as trying to build the best computers we knew how to build for people. That's always what we were trying to do.
And you never thought about Windows or Microsoft?
Sure, we thought about Windows, but we never thought of ourselves in a platform war. We always thought about how can we build a much better product than them. And I think that's how we still think about it.
And how about Google? How do you think about something has evolved and changed in the relationship between your company and Google, say compared to the day you introduced the iPhone now? What has happened?
Well,
they
decided to compete with us, and so they are.
Yeah. And in phones, in what operating systems?
In phones, sure.
And how about PC operating systems with this Chrome thing?
Well, again, Chrome is not really baked yet, so we'll see.
So how do
and browsers, they're competing with you in a number of areas, right? It's not just
in browsers, I think we all contribute browsers to the mix, but IE still has the biggest share, and Mozilla and IE together dwarf what Google and us do together. So
talk a little bit about your
and as you know, I mean, Chrome is based on the work that we've done at Apple with WebKit.
Yeah.
So we took a tiny little open source project and we created what's called WebKit out there.
Right.
And we did an interesting thing for Apple. We put it in open source.
That is an interesting thing for Apple.
And we've done a fair amount of it, but this is the thing that's been the most successful. And almost every modern mobile browser is now based on WebKit. Google's and Android, Nokia's, RIM is coming out with one, Palm's, obviously as well as ours. And it's the heart of Safari, it's the heart of Chrome. And so WebKit has picked up substantial momentum, and now all websites are testing against it. Every mobile website, but even a ton of desktop websites now, because of Safari and Chrome being based on WebKit, are now testing against it, and it's turning out to have a lot of momentum. So although we enabled our competitors to have much better browsers in the mobile space, we've created a real competitor to IE in terms of
if
momentum.
you take all the WebKit stuff together.
Yes, if you take it all together, and in the mobile space, it's number one.
So let's get back to the relationship with Google. So the basic competition is on these smartphones and these smartphone operating systems. How do you look at them as a competitor, and how do you feel about the changing relationship? Because it was, Eric was on your board. You had a very close relationship. Can you talk about what you felt happened there besides them competing? I mean,
well, they decided to compete with us.
And that's it.
That's it.
Well, we didn't go into the search business.
Well, I want to ask you about that in a minute. But you just woke up one morning and discovered they were going to compete with you.
Yeah.
Did he call you? Did he?
No, they started competing with us and got more and more serious.
So how do you look at the competition now? How do you look at the differences between Android and what you're doing?
Well, right now, if you look at the smartphone market share, the way people define smartphones is a little funny, but Nokia is still number one.
Yeah, but
I know it's.
Let's talk about super smartphones.
Well, again, everybody does this differently. RIM is number 2. We're number 3. Google's number 4, and other is number 5. So that's where it is right now.
Where's Microsoft?
They're in other.
Okay. All right. At the moment.
At the moment. And things can change.
They're doing a.
But do you consider?
We were 0 in 3 years ago.
Okay.
So things can change.
Okay, so those are numbers, but I think what we're trying to get at is, do
they're your
you feel
competitor.
betrayed, or what's your relationship with Google, or
And-
are you gonna?
And also,
No, seriously. I mean,
We're
are you
serious.
gonna?
My sex life is pretty good these days. How's yours?
It's great. Thanks for asking. It's great.
don't ask. But what is the relationship? What is the relation? How do you you have a lot of things you cooperate in maps, in search on the thing. Are you going to remove them from the iPhone, for example?
No.
So how do you look at the relation?
Well, we want to make a better product than they do, and we do.
right.
So that's what we're about. We're about making better products. And what I love about the consumer market that I always hated about the enterprise market is that we come up with a product, we try to tell everybody about it, and every person votes for themselves. They go yes or no. And if enough of them say yes, we get to come to work tomorrow. You know, that's how it works. It's really simple. As where the enterprise market, it's not so simple. The people that use the products don't decide for themselves. And the people that make those decisions sometimes are confused. So we love just trying to make the best products in the world for people and having them tell us by how they vote with their wallets whether we're on track or not.
So you're not going to remove Google from the iPhone and the iPad, but are you going to give users more prominently displayed additional choices to it, for instance, now that, because they are a competitor of yours now?
We definitely compete with each other. You know, I noticed in their latest offering, they're allowing their customers to take their iTunes music onto an Android phone, which is fine. They're helping us maybe sell more music. You know, we have some Google properties on our phone. Just because we're competing with somebody doesn't mean we have to be rude.
That's nice. Okay, so last year at our conference, we had a small search company called Siri.
Yeah.
And
well, I don't know if I would describe Siri as a search company.
okay, but it's a search-related company, and I'd like you to describe
I would
it.
not. I would.
You now own them, right?
Yeah, we bought them.
So what?
Why?
And there was a lot of speculation. Well, this company's kind of in the search area, and
No,
Apple
they're not in
hasn't.
the search area.
What are
don't-
they in? How
don't
would you
have-
describe it?
They're in the AI area. Yeah.
So you bought them for their engineers and their patents and their knowledge about AI more broadly.
We like what they do a lot.
Okay.
What do you want them to do for you? What are you?
So you're not going into the search business through them or anything like that?
No, we have no plans to go into the search business. That's not something we know about. It's not something we care deeply about. Other people do it well. See, what's so hard for people to remember, and this is good, I think, is go back to pre-iPhone, only 3 years ago. There was no app market for apps on phones. Phones were sold in truly walled gardens, as you know. You railed against this. And the thought that a developer could make an app for a phone was unheard of.
Well, there were apps for the Palm platform. There were some. Palm didn't operate a store, you're right.
Yes.
But there were apps, and
There were a few
independent
handfuls, yes.
companies would sell them, and you could download
There
them.
were a few handfuls, but there wasn't anything. I mean, there
No,
wasn't
nothing like this,
even 1% of what there is now.
right?
It's huge now.
Okay.
And also, when you bought a phone, the carrier dictated what was on that phone.
Right.
iPhone was the first phone where we had a new relationship with a carrier that said, carrier, you worry about the network, we'll worry about what's on the phone.
How are they doing with that network
Yeah.
thing here in the U.S.?
Well, they're doing pretty well, actually, in some ways, and they have some work to do in other ways.
And how do you pressure them? Do you when you get so many complaints and
Oh, we meet with them once a quarter, and they're doing a lot. I mean, remember, they're handling way more data traffic than all of their competitors combined, way more. And so they're having troubles, and they're having troubles. Their biggest trouble right now is getting equipment out of their suppliers so they can beef up these networks. But they have the fastest 3G network, and I think it's improving. I wish I could say rapidly, but I think it's, moderate rate improving. And I think they're going to end up with a very good, very fast network that is actually the most robust for handling lots of data, simply because they got there first and they had the problems. I'm convinced that any other network, had you put this many iPhones on it, would have had the same problems. But I do think they have some issues, and they're working hard on it.
Do you feel the need to move to another network?
Well, that's what I was going to. In the UK, you went to 3 carriers. It didn't seem to cannibalize your sales.
Right.
In the US, would there be an advantage to be on more than one carrier?
There might be.
There might be.
Might be.
So are you going to do it?
The future is long.
How about this year?
How about the short term?
The short term.
We talk about the short term.
Yeah, I can't talk about that stuff. You know that.
Okay, let's talk about the other things you're making, because you talk about you're not going to be in a search. What is your next? You've been here at D. You talked about, I guess, a couple of years ago, not really doing a phone and not doing a tablet or the tablets. You were sort of
different of your
different.
You gave reasons why tablet PC wasn't such a good idea.
Right.
And one another time you talked about you weren't going to do a phone because you had to sell it through I think you called them the 5 orifices at the time.
Right. 4, I think.
The carriers. Right. I was calling them the Soviet ministries, but you had a more colorful phrase. But and you're doing both of those.
Well, we found a way to change that. We found a way to sell the phone that we wanted to sell and define it the way we wanted to define it, have the control that we wanted to have over what was on the phone versus the carrier controlling that. So we were able to change the rules of the game, and that's what got us excited about getting into the phone business.
And when you were talking about it here, you didn't know that you could do that?
No, absolutely didn't think we could. We'd had some discussions, and we didn't think we could. But we were able to persuade AT&T, and they took a very big leap on us. I mean, we'd never been in the handset business before. We'd never been in the phone business in any way, shape, or form. So they took a big leap on us and decided they were going to trust us to do the right thing on the phone. And it's worked out very well. So we were able to change the rules of those games, in the game, in the same way in the tablet.
Yeah, talk about
what
the tablet.
I remember telling you on the tablet was that handwriting was probably the slowest input method ever invented, and that it was doomed to failure. Well, what we tried to do was reimagine the tablet. In other words, I think Microsoft did a lot of interesting work on the tablet. What we've done is not compete with what they did. We reimagined it, and what we're doing is completely different than what they did. They're completely stylus-based.
Their tablet PC that they have now.
For 10 years.
Yeah, right.
And what we said at the very beginning was, if you need a stylus, you've already failed.
So let's talk about tablets.
And that drove everything. Their tablet PC was based on a PC.
Right.
Had all the expense of a PC, had the battery life of a PC, had the weight of a PC. It used a PC operating system that really needed the precision of the tip of an arrow of a cursor.
Right.
Well, the minute you throw a stylus out, you cannot get that precision. You have the precision of a finger, which is much cruder. Therefore, you need to have totally different software. So you can't use a PC operating system. And you have to bite the bullet and say, we're going to have to create this from scratch because all the PC apps won't work without being rewritten anyway. And so we built a very different animal.
So when you built this OS, this multi-touch gestural OS for fingers, you didn't do it in a tablet right away. You did it in the phone. What was did you consider doing a tablet when you did the iPhone, or was it just a natural progression? The iPhone came out, it was a big hit.
I'll actually tell you kind of a secret.
Okay.
Okay.
I actually started on the tablet first.
Really?
And I had this idea of being able to get rid of the keyboard, type on a multi-touch glass display. And I asked our folks, could we come up with a multi-touch display that we could type on, I could rest my hands on and actually type on. And about 6 months later, they called me in and showed me this prototype display. And it was amazing. And I gave it to one of our guys. This was in the early 90s. I mean, early 2000s.
2000s, yeah.
And I gave it to one of our other really brilliant UI folks. And he called me back a few weeks later, and he had inertial scrolling working and a few other things. Now, we were thinking about building a phone at that time. And when I saw the rubber band, inertial scrolling, and a few of the other things, I thought, oh my God, we can build a phone out of this. And I put the tablet project on the shelf because the phone was more important. And we went and took the next several years and did the iPhone.
So
And when we got our wind back and thought we could take on something next, pulled the tablet off the shelf, took everything we learned from the phone, and went back to work on the tablet.
So where does the tablet go from here? Now, among the many things that people think it's going to do is save journalism. That was, there's a lot of stories about you going to visit publishers and talking about it being the hope of journalism. Do you consider that a goal of yours or anything that's important to you, or is it just that magazines look real pretty on it?
Well, we have a lot of goals with it, but one of my beliefs very strongly is that any democracy depends on a free, healthy press. And so when I think of the most important journalistic endeavors in this country, I think of things like the Washington Post, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and publications like that. And we all know what's happened to the economics of those businesses. And some of them are in real trouble. So even more than magazines, I think some of these newspapers are, the news gathering and editorial organizations are really important. I don't want to see us descend into a nation of bloggers myself. I think we need editorial more than ever right now. So anything that we can do to help the New York Times and the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, and other news gathering organizations find new ways of expression so that they can afford to get paid, so they can afford to keep their news gathering and editorial operations intact, I'm all for.
Do you actually think it'll work? I mean, is this something that you think are you thinking people will move to reading? Have you moved yourself?
Well, we've all moved to reading our news on the
Right.
web. That's why these newspapers are in dire straits. And what we have to do is figure out a way to get people to start paying for this hard-earned content. And so this provides us a potential opportunity to provide them even more value than just a web page and to start to charge a little bit for that. Now, what I preach is that I don't know what's going to work, but I can tell you, as one of the largest sellers of content on the internet to date, the biggest lesson Apple's learned is price it aggressively and go for volume. And that's worked for us. And every time we haven't done that as much, we've seen more attenuated success. So I'm trying to get these folks to take more aggressive postures than what they charge traditionally for print, because they don't have the expenses of printing, they don't have the expenses of delivery, and to charge a reasonable price and go for volume.
Now,
because I think people are willing to pay for content.
Right.
I've believed it in music, I believe it in media, and I believe it in news content.
But in books,
Yes.
and I'm no expert on this agency model and all the stuff that's going on, although our colleagues at the Journal have certainly written about it very, very well. But it looks like your entry into the book thing actually forced the prices up, other than for new like bestsellers where there's a lot of competition. So isn't that opposite of what you just said of trying to price more aggressively? mean, the typical book is up toward $14.99, and Amazon had been kind of holding it down to $9.99, right?
Yeah, it's complicated. The market right now is such that it is set up to be far more responsive to consumer demand for what the prices need to be than it was 6 months ago. Way more responsive. So we may see prices go up a little bit, but if consumers want the prices to be less, they will be far more responsive to those signals than they were going to be
Because the structure of the
6 months
market
ago.
is
Because the structure of how the publishers are approaching this is changed dramatically.
So let's talk more broadly about tablets. A second ago, you said you have a lot of plans for tablets or thoughts about what tablets could be. And when you did your presentation on the iPad, you said it's like, here's your phone, here's your laptop, here's this third category. And if it's not better than a netbook, if it's not of value to people, it's not going to succeed. Mm-hmm. And, in my own review, I was, I liked it, I was favorable. I said it had a chance to really change things, but I also said people have to feel like it's not an extra thing to carry. They have to feel like it's enough of the time going to replace enough of the things they do on their laptop, not necessarily 100%. Mm-hmm. Is the tablet going to be eventually replace the laptop, do you think? There are a lot of people who say, well, you'll never do content creation on it, for instance. Talk about what you think, where it's going, not just the iPad, but the tablet itself as a form factor.
I'm trying to think of a good analogy. When we were an agrarian nation, all cars were trucks, because that's what you needed on the farm. But as vehicles started to be used in the urban centers, and America started to move into those urban and then suburban centers, cars got more popular, and innovations like automatic transmission and power steering and things that you didn't care about in a truck as much started to become paramount in cars. And now, probably, I don't know what the statistics are, maybe 1 out of every 25 vehicles, 30 vehicles is a truck, where it used to be 100%. PCs are going to be like trucks. They're still going to be around. They're still going to have a lot of value, but they're going to be used by 1 out of X people.
And when you say PC, just so I'm clear, it's not PC versus Mac. You mean
I mean personal
computers, and you're including laptops and desktops.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this transformation is going to make some people uneasy. People from the PC world, like you and me. It's going to make us uneasy because the PC's taken us a long ways. It's brilliant. And we like to talk about the post-PC era, but when it really starts to happen, I think it's uncomfortable for a lot of people, and because it's change, and a lot of vested interests are going to change, and years from now or 7 years from now, who knows? But I think we're sure.
And power transmission and windshield wiper, like intermittent windshield wipers. Are there some things you're seeing now that you think will change from right now where the iPad started?
I know where to just view.
Hey, it's Yash, and in this lesson, we're going to talk about Clay's write to table feature, one of the most important tools for connecting tables with different types of information hierarchies in Clay. So, what does write to table actually do? Remember that when we run find people from a find companies table, we actually automatically have a version of write to table running for us. And remember that in our company lookalikes lesson, we already used write to table once. What we'll do in this lesson is just take a deeper dive at exactly how we used write to table in the company lookalikes lesson and break down the pieces bit by bit. First, let's take a look at how this implicit write to table works across find companies and find people tables. You'll notice that in your find people table, you have that lookup column that refreshes data whenever you need it from your find companies table. That's actually as complicated as it gets, from find companies to find people. What's harder is creating write to table on our own for custom data definitions like we did for company lookalikes. Let's dig into that next. Let's take a look back over the write to table integration we created in our company lookalikes video. Now, when we edit that source, we can see there are 4 key parts of the write to table integration. Part 1, you have to actually choose a table to write that data to. Part source, we can see there are 4. Now, when we edit that source, we can see. Let's take a look back over the write to table integration we created in our company lookalikes video. Now, when we edit that source, we can.
So it seems like find select enter a list from a column. Did it write into the table though? What am I looking for? I'm looking for where does this it doesn't seem particularly clear to me. Perhaps I'm not writing it because it says successful. Let me show you guys what I'm talking about. Perhaps I need to finish the video by Yash first. But when I look at this, write to other table, if I edit the column, write to other table, configure, select a table to write to. Oh, did it actually write to this table? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's right. You know, Dylan,
What's up, bro?
real deal, buddy.
The real deal.
Oh,
Oh, I got the real deal, dude.
Like
Do
the
you like them?
like the real deal, like from the States.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, is it different?
Well, the ones at Dunbar were like fake.
No, no. I don't, I got the.
White Fox. But these are just like the actual zins.
Like what is it? Just look like these, like,
Yeah. Okay. Where did you get those? They
um,
have like the kind of like
oh, maybe they aren't the real deal.
no, it's the same thing.
It looks real deal.
I think so.
I got these from
Sorry? Yeah, where did you get them?
I got them from this one on Broadway.
Yeah.
I think it's called West Side Vapes.
Really?
Yeah, when I was
Okay.
vaping, it's where I used to get my vapes from. They're I don't know. I don't know if I like them, to be honest.
Yeah. These ones,
Yeah.
because they're strong, or
I taste really gross me out.
the peppermint, or just they have a citrus one that's really good.
Mm.
Oh,
No, the peppermint and the spearmint,
Yeah.
both of them. I'm like,
Yeah.
I was like, oh,
Citrus is good. And then wintergreen's good.
mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a fucking strain.
No, that's all good. It's the thing that people. That's like saying like, I like this kind of beer or this kind of beer.
Could I see that one? I want to just double check
Yeah.
yours. I just want to see if it's like compare.
Yep. Feel free, man.
There's like it might be like a. Okay, yours is a spearmint.
I think it's from the States. I'm pretty-
Dude, yeah, this seems like
Yeah.
it's got all the same shit here.
Yeah. Hopefully the stream never blows up and this blows up West Side Vapes. Fucking.
Yeah.
I kind of like the Dunbar ones though, no lie. I like the White Fox, the very particular flavor. But to be honest, I'm gonna have to get off the Zins. It's kind of gross. I feel like the actual Zin brand, I'm like, whoa, these are nasty, bro. Oh, Tanner's using them, bro. Tanner's using them. Why are you going somewhere? Where do you need a suitcase? Oh, well, I just told him, I was like, yeah, there's suitcases here. I don't know. They're in a common area. If they're in your room, it'd be like, I'm not gonna go in your room, but they're there.
There's stuff inside them.
There's stuff inside them?
Yeah, you can choose them.
Like which pockets?
There's stuff inside them.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he hasn't put anything in them yet. I can reach out to him. But he's not in town. He's gone to his boat. He's not using them, but they're at his place because he works like shift work. You familiar? Basically like 2 week on, 1 week off kind of thing. And so he's working right now and he gets back on the 28th or 29th, works for a day and then or not works for a day. Has to move all this shit out in a day and then they get rid of the place.
Yeah, but there are stuff inside them, and then there's some stuff that might get lost. And these bags are also expensive, so I don't want any cuts and damage happen to them.
Okay, bro.
You should have tested me before.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he asked me. I was like, yeah, dude, they're sitting out here. If it's like a personal belonging, I feel like I feel like that belongs in your room then. I mean, you have a closet, right? Okay. I'm sorry, man. Dude, you can beat him up if he fucks him up. I said you can beat him up if he fucks him up. I'll mention it to him though. Just be like, yo, he has do like is it private or some shit? Like if I say like, hey, he has XYZ thing in there, like don't take that out or whatever. Okay. Yeah. All right. I, can I name this new field? Is this actually updating this thing right now? Okay, it is. Select a list. How do you know it was successful other than you telling me? I don't think it's successful. All right, let's watch this video. Maybe he.
See, there are 4 key parts of the write to table integration. Part 1, you have to actually choose a table to write that data to. You can choose an existing table or optionally create a brand new table whenever you want to. You would only want to choose an existing table whenever there's a table that you simply want to add more data to instead of creating an entirely new source from an existing list. Second, you're going to want to optionally create a list that you can write to your external table. This is potentially one of the most confusing things about write to table for most people because it's not clear in the product that you can use write to table without using a list. For example, if I simply wanted to write different values from columns and rows in this table to another table and mesh them, I could absolutely do that by just not adding a list and instead only using this add other data from this table option in the last option for write to table. However, that's very rarely useful to people. So instead, you will most often add a list to your second option in write to table and keep in mind that it has to be a list. You can't add a column that is not a list because then write to table will not recognize it as valid. You can tell what data types are lists and not lists in Clay by seeing whether or not they have the curly brackets with the number around them. Those curly brackets indicate that it is a data object that actually has multiple nested data objects inside of it, like so. For an
Okay, so how do I write these two data objects? This is so fucking. Pardon my language. So maybe I need to design this API different. This just gets me the job ID. What do you call them? What is the field pass to return? Okay, that's so is the issue that I'm not sent. I feel like I should just be able to send this. Within a row. Add a column. Look up, browse hemp place. Look up. Edit this.
Do you know when is he coming back?
The 28th.
28th? And what is he using it for?
Where's close?
To put his clothes in? You got them in his house or something?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in his apartment in Port Coquitlam.
So you use them to get his clothes here or something like that?
Mm-hmm. He's not like taking it on a trip or anything like that. Like it's literally it's in his apartment right now. And he'll get back, he'll put some clothes in it, drive. Okay, has this worked then? Oh, nice. Okay. So that was the issue. So the lookup, you can make the lookups more dynamic. Generate it. So if I go into edit column here, I'm pulling in data from a webhook table, which is a drop-down thing here, but you can also, this is the added functionality, text with tokens. I should write down, is there a guide slash legend? Okay, perfect. I think that the lookup issue is solved. There's a largest recheck that you already, yeah. All right, next, can we get better images? Can we get better images is the question. I mean, the answer is obviously yes, but how do you do that in a scalable, sort of automated way? Hmm.
Example, if we look at our company lookalikes action and we look at the lookalikes list, we can then see all of the different company variables that we have the ability to extract in this third option into individual data points and components in our new table. So now if we go back to our company lookalikes action and see all the different things that we have available to us from company lookalikes, each of these individual data attributes are our new options available to create new columns in this write to table action from that company lookalikes list. Finally, as you'll probably remember, we went ahead and just added the existing source company name data from this table using that final fourth add other data from this table option at the bottom of our write to table action. Once you've configured all four of those options and what table you're sending it to, what list you're extracting from, what attributes you want from that list, and the other data you want from your table, you're ready to use write to table like a pro across any of your Clay workbooks. That's everything we've got for write to table. Up next, HTTP API. Company lookalikes list. Finally, as you'll probably remember, an object that actually has multiple nested data objects inside of it, like so. For an example, if we look at our company lookalikes action and we look at the lookalikes list, we can then see all of the different company variables that we have the ability to to extract in this third option into individual data points and components in our new table. So now if we go back to our company lookalikes action and see all the different things that we have available to us from company lookalikes, each of these individual data attributes are our new options available to create new columns in this write to table action from that company lookalikes list. Finally, as you'll probably remember,
So it seems like the fundamental like vehicle for data within Clay is a JSON object. Seems like that's how they connect to stuff or pass data around. The reason I'm curious about that is because like when I look at reference an endpoint from a column use cases for dynamic column referencing, dynamic referencing allows you to reference insert fields like a context name, location, or company performance. I do think that's super handy, just the backslash for prompting. I'm just looking at them like, how is this done? How do they engineer this? Very interesting. Right, like the note I just made is like the backslash for prompting in Clay is a great feature. What it reminds me of is the terminal. If I start a new terminal here, if you don't know, basically I can go print working directory, and that'll show me where in my computer I'm directly interacting with. So right now, this folder that I'm in, all of the available triggers I can, or interactions I can have, is all situated in the context of this library. Right, but here you can sort of zoom in and out of, one thing I will say is like, that is a context window. You can think of that. And the context window says like, here are all of the options that we have, different directions we can go. Here's what I know. It's basically like the computer saying, this is what I can access right now. So I can change the directory, ... I can change the directory. Maybe I'll even use Ghosty for this. Let's say Ghosty. Okay, so right now, print working directory. Let's zoom in on Ghosty. Can you zoom in on Ghosty? Yeah, you can, of course. Make this real big. Oh, excuse me. Pardon me. I apologize. Right now, I can go print working directory. it says, okay, the computer, the root is users, Dylan. Okay, so if I go ls, it's going to show, but maybe not even, let's not do ls. Let's go change directory. I want to go up. Let's go cd. So instead of the absolute path, I can write the relative path. So anything I write, if I start it with a dash like this, it's saying, it would be like saying the full path, users, Dylan. I'm gonna use this, and I should be able to press tab. Yeah, press tab right there, and it shows me here's all of the like sort of subfolders of users, Dylan, applications, desktop, documents, downloads. I can go into any of those, right? And so what you can do actually, which is really nice, is you can delete all of this, just have one /, and it'll do the same thing. And I can press tab here, show these are the different bins I can go into. So let's say if I went desktop. Oh, actually that looked weird. User systems. Okay, so let's say cd into desktop. Oh, am I tripping? Let's go ls. Let's go cd into desktop. Oh, okay, so you can just type it actually. So if I cd into desktop, let's clear this. Clear, right? Press print working directory, it'll tell me I'm in the desktop folder. In here I can run ls, that'll list all the different, I guess, services that are available or folders we can go. Live thumbnails, manual library, screenshot, live, JPEG. So one thing I could do here, for instance, is I could go cd into live, cd live, or how do we do this? Move live JPEG to live thumbnails. Print working, or let's see, ls. If I cd into live thumbnails, I can run ls. And what's the one that we named? 19. 19 should be in here now. Live training JPEG, live training 19. Yeah, there you go. So we're just able to move that file around. And that's kind of what you're doing when you're clicking and dragging. That's like the fundamental thing that's actually being written to the computer. Pretty cool. So we can cd ... again out of this. We're now back in the desktop. Where was I going with that? Yeah, but that's just to show you an example of like how, what I'm really curious about is how do they establish a context for us to write into? Like this \, I think is a great feature. It's very interesting to me. Why is it that I can add an enrichment, say this, for instance, let's go there, and I can write \ here, and it'll show me all. Well, maybe not all. I don't know enough yet, but it feels like it gives you a pretty good idea of sort of saying, hey, here's the tools that are available, which I think is very handy. Especially the more advanced the use cases get. Because I think when he's talking about this write functionality, I think it was this one. Oh, no, it's a different video. I swear there's a part where it's talking about hard coding it, right? Because they also have this really neat feature of actually just, what's the word I'm looking for? Allowing just not just drop downs, but actually you can define a list that you know will likely be available. It's very cool.
Imagine having
That was loud. Okay, I'm gonna exit that because I'm not trying to build that. Don't save that. Where are we at? Okay, so right here we can press this. Show you a bunch of stuff, man. Show you a bunch of different options that are available. And you can press use AI. Or it'll intuit what you mean. It's very cool. I think that's like a, yeah, awesome functionality. Okay. So right now this is kind of like an engine for us. I'm super stoked. So we've got the workflow working. That's great. Let's actually clean up this table now. We're gonna delete that. I think one thing that'd be really nice is not having to double click into this. Delete that. Delete this. Delete this. I wonder if you can do like shift. You can. Okay. That's not as bad then. Delete both those. Okay. So how? Something look into use AI config prompt and output. Output. Should be fields or JSON schema. Hmm. Okay, one thing we do want to make sure we do here is, did I just close down that thing? I did. Okay. Wish it would just keep me logged into AppClay, but I guess that makes sense. V0 workbook. I feel like a lot of this can be hidden. One thing we want to do here is let a column only if the use AI. Want this column to only run HV is not empty. Okay, let's V0. Oh, it's so nice. like good progress was made today. I might be on my way out here. I need to chill a little bit. That lunch really kind of slowed me down, that big lunch. Um, mhm. That's how the command line works, guys. We're gonna zoom way out. Oh. All right, that's how the command line works. I figured out the lookup thing. Happy about that. Got a notification here.
A landing page like this for every top prospect. With Clay's latest integration, now you can. Let's walk through how we created this landing page for Uber. We'll start by getting Uber's name and logo. First, we'll grab their domain with Claygen, and finally, their logo. Then, we'll send this data into Webflow. Click Add Enrichment and search for Webflow. We'll select Create Collection Item and authorize our account. Select our website and the relevant collection. Then, select the name and slug of your page along with the company name and logo from the
Yo, stream. I'm gonna cut it there. I'm gonna cut it there. Um, yeah. I'm doing some dishes right now, and I'm like, man, there's some stuff that's got to be done around this house. And I'm really happy with the progress. I'm super stoked that this integration, this enrichment that is custom built is working. And now it's about fine tuning it over the next. I guess I have 8 days left on my trial, so that kind of lines up perfectly with when I'm supposed to head over to Edmonton for something. So yeah, then I'll probably take a week off the streams as I visit family and do a few things over there. It's a long time to take off streams. I don't love that actually. Yeah, okay. Anyways, stream. Y'all have a blessed day. Thank you for joining me. If you did check this out, I basically do these every day. Not basically. I've done them 20 some days in a row. So yeah, expect more content. Like, comment, subscribe if you're into that kind of thing. Yeah, hopefully we keep making cool shit on this channel. Just doing a bunch of experiments. I'm really excited for next month. I'll be developing a curriculum for prompt engineering. I had my first 30 minutes of today's stream. I ranted about it, and then we kind of got down to business. So yeah, I'm gonna sign off here. But like I said, thank you so much for joining. I'll be back tomorrow and every day after that until the 24th, where then I have to head to Alberta. So we'll see. I don't know if I'll be streaming when I'm in Alberta, because I don't really have a setting that's conducive. I'll still be working. So I mean, I guess I could do some like, yeah, maybe that's just a limitation or excuse that I'm making up.